All right, good afternoon, everyone. It is Wednesday, October 29th at 1:30, so this must be the Finance and Executive Committee meeting. I'm Howard Shook, Chair of the Committee. Vice Chair Wands to my right. We have Mr. Winston, Mr. Hillis to my left. I know Ms. Vecchiari is here. Others will be, I'm sure, arriving shortly. I will make a motion to adopt the agenda. Second by Juan. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed. Wait a minute.
All right, the agenda's
Who's missing?
been adopted. I'll move approval of the minute.
Yeah, we can vote. We have 4 here.
I'll move approval of the minutes. Second by Juan.
The vote is open. And that vote is closed.
All right, minutes have been approved. That takes us to public comment. We have several people signed up. Just a process note, this committee does not allow for donated time. So if you want to, anyone who wants to speak, you've got your 3 minutes to do so. And first up is Vince Champion. Vince Champion. Ms. Pagnana? Okay. Alvin Rashad. Oh, here they are.
Still trying to negotiate. Being due diligent.
Hi, Vince Champion, Regional Director for the International Brotherhood of Police Officers and National Association of Government Employees. I have the honor of representing PACE and also the police officers here. I apologize. I was out talking and I should have paid more attention. I apologize, council people. Of course, the first thing that we want to step up and that I'm here to speak on is 25-0-1550. We've looked through the as it is, and there's a lot of issues and a lot of questions more so than answers. The city already has an ability, and they actually have one now that is that they've recognized that they're taking dues deductions from. The question is, in our opinion, is it recognition or dues deductions that we're trying to solve in this issue? If it's just taking dues from an organization, I don't know, at least speaking for PACE and IBPO, we don't have any issue with having dues deducted if that's what the city chooses to do. The question comes into the recognition. The recognition part of what the original language was that we were the ones who were allowed to go before commission in the budget hearings, talk about issues that have to do with the finances and things of that nature. And that is where we believe that by the old language that talks about the 50% plus one, that shows that we represent the majority of the voice of our interest. That's why we believe, and hopefully when all this came through, that's what the commission at the time, or the council people believed at the time, that we represented the biggest bulk, whomever that unit may be, represents the biggest bulk, and they should be recognized to come forward to talk for the employees. There's a myriad of things in here that I think could have been talked out, but on the October meeting, it was tabled to have discussions, and I at least know for a fact that IBPO has never been discussed, had any discussions, or asked to talk about this or have any input about this law, about this legislation going through. So we didn't have time to talk about anything that we may or may find wrong or have issues with. Even in the language, at least that I have, in the section G, you even talk about a percentage or a number. But it doesn't say what that percentage or number is to make that you can, as an as a unit. So then it says that we're going to let the CFO write the rules. That's not an issue other than one person writing the rules and having the dedication. But what is the issue is you're asking us to agree to something or sign on and in favor of something that we don't even know what the rules are. So it would have been nice to have the rules first and then see if we could move forward on the legislation. I see my time's up again. I apologize for being late.
That's all right.
If there's any questions or anything, I'd love to answer if any council has them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Pagnotti.
Good afternoon, Gina Pagnotta, President of PACE. I'm not going to be browbeating you today. I'm going to speak softly. But I want you to understand that I still stand to what I said before. I want this to be clear that PACE is in no shape, form, or fashion against dues deduction for any labor organization. We're labor. So there's no way that I want to go from there. FPSC has service dues coming out, or I like to say payroll deductions. So I don't see why it would be so hard to have this organization, Progressive, to be able to have payroll deductions. Because as Mr. Tyler, the president, did mention, all they want is basically dues deductions. We're not against that. What I am not comfortable with very strongly is what I read through the strikeouts of all the unions that are recognized. And that means they took away the community of interest. That means they took away the recognition. We're under an MOU and not a CBA. We don't have collective bargaining. We're under the Muni Code, and we are oppositions with other unions, and they have asked me as one group, and PACE is another for the civilian side of the house. Progressive and IAFF are sworn unions. That's their nicely fight, that we're not trying to get in between of the mayor's administration decision or council's decision. But I was talking to DCOO. We talked all day yesterday. We talked last night. We talked this morning. We are trying to make some leadway where PACE can still be in that code as Professional Association of City Employees, what our community of interests are with our Appendix A as normal, just update it, and we're fine with that, long as it's in there, not striked out that we don't exist. I don't like the way it's saying that labor organizations. I want it defined that PACE labor organization has a place and a role in the Muni Code with the city, that we have dues deduction, we have community of interest, and that we are a recognized civilian union in the city of Atlanta. I would like to have that, and when we can have that, we would be in 100% agreement with anything that the administration or the council approves of. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Alvin Rashad.
Good evening, Council. Alvin Rashad, Vice President, Local 134. I'm speaking in that capacity only. The IFF has a history here in Atlanta of progress and struggle for decades now through deep divisions, whether it's racial, political, or organization, that has really tested the solitude. And many of our leaders today, they went through that, and we respect how they feel and what they went through back then. But healing requires maturity. Recognize the good that came with lifting our members in the community and the positive work and the community engagement of Progressive. Their service will always be respected. But it also requires clarity. The Local 134 has always supported fraternal organizations and that uplift community and firefighters. We do not support a conflicting organization that acts as an alternate union that seeks payroll deduction. The firefighters of Atlanta have already made their choice clearly and democratically. In September of last year, 90% of the firefighters voted for Local 134 to be their representative, and later reaffirmed that overwhelmingly with confirming the CBA. That's not division, that's unity. And the law recognizes that, and so should the city. Atlanta already has 4 recognized unions, one for the police, ACME, the firefighters, and the police union. That structure ensures clarity, fairness, and accountability. Imagine if the firefighters that are post-certified with the City of Atlanta Fire Department decided they wanted to have their own labor organization and they're coming here and trying to get dues deduction, that would be met with resistance. That's a conflicting organization. Dual representation does not strengthen our department, it divides it. Every hour spent worried about who represents who is taken away from firefighters fighting for better pay, better, safer working conditions, better equipment, and just firefighters in general. The Local 134 welcomes any member who have the same goals of making the department better and strengthening our organization. We can agree to disagree, and we can do that without being divided. What matters is together protecting the men and women to protect the city. And to the members of the council, you have the power to declare, the power to end the decades-long division. For too long, the fire department carried the weight of internal battles that drained and delayed progress. You can finally end that chapter by standing with one union. And the last thing I want to say, we are all firemen, and let's put these flames out together, not burn the house down, and stand together and protect what we built. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Nate Bailey.
Afternoon, Council. Nate Bailey, President of the Atlanta Professional Firefighters, also here speaking in my private citizen capacity. This ordinance on its face is supposed to be a good deed, but when you really look at it, it really is a slap in the face of labor. If you dilute labor, you dilute the voice, it leads to confusion, and there is no success. That's why in the private sector, there can be only one union. That's why when the city established this, they established a 50+1. If you want to be the recognized union, there's a process that you can do that. You can show your cards, 50+1, and then you can challenge the other union. When we passed the Mediation Act, we bypassed that because it was in conflict. So with the Mediation Act, you had to get certified. We held a vote. We spent a ton of money on it. Every single firefighter got to vote. It was tracked. We paid a lot of money to the American Arbitration Association. And out of that vote, 512 out of 851 voted. You know how hard it is to get people to vote. So over 50%, well over 50% voted. Only 20 people voted no. So everyone had a chance to vote. Also, we have a board member that's a member of Progressive on our board. So they have that voice as well. So there's not multiple voices out there. There's one sole exclusive representative. And just to clarify some things, Alvin kind of spoke on a little bit. Just some Q&A here. Can Progressive speak to city officials about wages, benefits, or working conditions? No. We are the sole exclusive representative. If you have multiple people coming, it leads to confusion. It also can lead to what's called an executive union, and that's the problem I'm having over the last week. Some things have come to light. Progressive sent out an email that was very divisive, and I showed it to other people just to make sure I wasn't being biased, but it was a union-busting email. It said you don't have to be a part of the union to have the benefits of the collective bargaining agreement. That is straight out of unionbustingplaybook.org. When union busters come in, they tell people, you can still get the benefits, you don't have to be a member. It was very divisive, and it's kind of made me think that maybe there's some ulterior motives here. And especially if you look at that ordinance. It's a way to dilute us and possibly set up a legal challenge for the Mediation Act. Our attorneys were very clear, don't touch the labor code. Like IBPO said and Gina, there's ways to get dues deduction. Just please don't mess with the labor code. Also, every member that doesn't pay dues, we have to fight for them every year. So we do fight for them. We are their representative. And we help, if there's a grievance in the contract, we have to do that grievance process for them. So they do get the benefits of it. But adding another union would be completely divisive and it would be anti-labor, absolutely. So if you vote yes for this or try to bring it out, it's anti-labor. Please don't do that, and let's just keep things the way they are, and let's be a pro-labor city. Thank you.
Tyler Nelson.
Good morning, Council. Again, I'm Tyler Nelson. I'm the president of Progressive Firefighters of Atlanta Labor Organization. I'm also a proud resident of District 4, represented by Jason Dozier, and a consistent voter. I care about the city, the men and the women who serve it every day. For the past 2 weeks, I've stood up before a committee and the council to speak about one simple request, and we were asking for payroll deduction through formal recognition so that we may receive payroll deduction. This is a right-to-work state, and our legislation is currently being held, and I'm just here today to ask that we move it forward. We're not here to conflict or rival with any other recognized union. This foundation, again, was started by Chief William Hamer 56 years ago when black firefighters not allowed to join the local union. Fast forward today, everyone is able to join, and we welcome everybody in our organization. We are a group of diverse and unified firefighters, and there is no rival at all. Our community of interest includes sworn Atlanta personnel, and we focus on professional development, morale, peer support, and community collaboration. For decades, we've been a resource for our department and for the city. We've stood by firefighters in disciplinary meetings, offered mentorship and support, study groups for promotional exams, and in the past, this organization has worked with the mayor's office and fire administration to strengthen the department. Our approach is local and hands-on. We don't have an international agenda. We just focus on what the issues are in the city of Atlanta limits to make this department better. Over the past year alone, we've secured a wholesale account with Coca-Cola, supplied Powerade powder to all fire stations during the summer months to assist with hydration. We provided funds for a firefighter his home caught fire recently, and we provided some funds for him because he was homeless. Currently, our membership, Mr. Shook, Councilor Shook, you asked last time what our membership was. Our membership represents 16% of the total sworn firefighters today. We usually pick up each class of recruits recently. Right now, we have 163 on our current database. With limited funds from this percentage, we've been able to do a lot of donation and supplying for back-to-school events. We've given hours of our time to community service. Receiving dues deduction is going to give us a strong financial base to help foster a growth and be a consistent resource to the firefighters and the community that we serve. This is going to allow us time to devote more to focusing on the actual cause and not track down funds. Our initiatives are simply to continue to support our fire department, the firefighters, and the community we serve. Our plight is not collective bargaining. We're just here to help the community, help the fire department. I think there's some confusion with that, which is done on purpose. So I just invite you all again to speak about this so we can get down to business and not trigger words like union busting and things like that. We've been around and we've yet to receive any federal charges, anything about receiving union busting. We don't have to break any laws to help out each of your communities, help our firefighters, and make this department grow. So thank you.
Thank you. Jaleesa Anderson.
Good afternoon. I'm here to speak with DCO Jason Ingram. He stated that he's available to speak today.
All right, let's go to our last public commenter, Alicia Anderson. Okay. Okay, well, yes, sorry, we do not allow for donated time here. So with that, that concludes public comment on this issue. And we've been joined by Ms. Bakhtiari and Byron Amos. And we will take the paper up. When it comes our way, we do have a healthy agenda here. A word about our presentations, reports, and updates. They are, with a single exception, in printed handout form today. We are going to get an update from the Department of Finance regarding the most recent evaluation of the budget monthly report. If you're ready, Mr. CFO.
Texting away. So we're going to talk about the monthly financials? Sure.
Yes.
We can get right into it. So on the first, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon. Hamid Bala, Chief Financial Officer, City of Atlanta. So I just wanted to orient the committee here that this is for the month ended September. You will see a more refined version of this when we do our quarterly report. So the projections will probably change slightly as we get more actual data for year-to-date actuals. We'll probably be doing a quarterly report sometime in November. So on the first page, what I wanted to highlight here is our clicker. It highlights the general fund revenue projections. As you can see, the year-to-date revenue projections at 983 are about 8 million higher than the budgeted numbers of 975 million. That's driven primarily by better than expected numbers for our insurance premiums that came in this month, as well as other revenues. We are seeing a slight lag in permitting activity, so we're projecting that to be down slightly, and the building rental revenues down slightly due to the loss of 72 Marietta's annual income, since that was purchased by the Department of Watershed Management last year. What's not included in this projection yet is the occupational business tax licensing fees that were adopted by the city council. So we're working with our implementation team to get those into the rate table, and we'll have some revised upward projections of the revenue numbers in the quarterly. On the next slide, you will see the general fund expense projections. Again, the expense projections are a little higher than expected by 2.5%. So they're coming in at about 999 million. That's primarily driven by other financing uses, as well as the personnel line item, which is expected to be 2% over budget. For the other financing uses, there are some charges that were related to the NOVA contract that were implemented this year, as well as Axon contract being higher than expected during the budget season. The last slide that you will see here is essentially the same overage broken up by departments. And as you can see, the primary drivers continue to be public safety investments, with police being 20 million over, as well as fire being 7 million over the projected budget. And then the last slide, before we dive into any questions, is just the vacancy review board submissions for the month of September. You will see that there was about 56 rejections on the vacancy review board and 27 for the general fund that were approved. Most of the approvals continue to be on the enterprise funds, where there is less of a budgetary constraint. And I'll open up to any questions. And we also have members of the finance team here that could dive deeper if need be.
All right, thank you. Questions, comments? Actually, Mr. CFO, I'll let you go first. What do you see?
I do see that the vacancy review board is helping with some of guarding on the personnel projections. If you remember last year, I think we finished end of the year right about the same projection that we're having here for end of the year of 630. I think we finished at 634 million last year. So we're starting to see that tighten a little bit. We will continue to work with the administration on making sure that personnel costs are continue to be contained. We're optimistic with regards to revenue and what that could entail in terms of the increase for business taxes. And we'll continue to work with some of the core departments like planning to see what the permitting reductions we're seeing, if they're a function of backlog and staffing, or is it more of a function of just lower activity? And we're working with the departments on that as well. Overall, I would like to say that we are not out of the the woods in terms of the financial impacts of the city of Atlanta. We continue to be laser focused on making sure that we continue to manage this appropriately. We have great buy-in from the administration. The CEO is very much on board about spending and is working with each department to find some more efficiencies throughout the rest of the year.
Mr. Juan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. CFO. So if I'm understanding the numbers correctly, we are now kind of forecasting a $15 million shortfall or budget deficit for the year.
Not including the revenue anticipations
Right.
from the business license taxes increases.
Yeah, as it-
So,
right.
Yeah,
That-
as it's highlighted here in this packet.
So we'll get a little bit of some cushion there.
Right.
Potentially. And I appreciate the walkthrough on the revenue side. Now, the personnel line item or projected deficit or overage, that's the right word, $12 million. Right now, how much of that is guesstimate is overtime and how much of that is just salary? And the reason why I ask is we're 3 months in now, and the warning signs that we should have seen in FY25, are we seeing similar ones? And it seemed like it was, again, the overtime started ballooning really, really quickly. And then salary, we were having departments fill unfunded positions. And so I just, want to check to make sure we're not seeing the same signals. And the VRB notwithstanding, but
Yeah.
what can you tell me about that?
That's a good question. In terms of the overtime budgets, they are more in line this year than last year. So there's significant improvements with overtime. Much of that has to do with the fact that the public safety training facility is fully on board. So the 24-hour staffing needs are gone. What we are seeing, though, is there is more sworn personnel in the system as recruiting has gotten better. So what we've seen is that the recruiting classes are larger than expected. The offerings that the police department has been able to make has actually helped increase staffing, which is something we wanted to see. So there's an over kind of performance on sworn personnel for both police and fire that's driving some of this overage a little bit, and that's being offset by efficiencies in other departments. So you'll see there is a lot of the general fund departments are projecting, kind of a surplus over a year, with City Council, one of the ones leading the way at 2.3 million. So thank you.
So the personnel overage you're saying is mostly public safety?
Yeah.
And not the others?
We've seen Department of Transportation do real nice job curtailing their overtime as well.
Yeah, that's the one department I would be like, I'm okay with them spend more because the project delivery needs, as we talked about this morning. The VRB data, the general fund 27 approvals, what department or departments were the primary ones that got the green line, the green bar?
Public safety,
Was it all solely public safety or anybody else?
primarily public safety, with as well as some considerations made for critical positions in Parks and Rec, as well as those, you see APD is the highest one there, 38 submittals, but we could get the breakdown of.
Well, those are the submissions.
Yeah, those submissions. But
Yeah, I'm curious
but
about.
It also kind of leans more public safety in terms of approvals.
Okay, all right. Okay, I feel okay about it, but I think my takeaway is that we got to keep the belt tightened still. I'm not comfortable yet in terms of relinquishing or keeping our foot off the brake pedal, just because I think the uncertainty right now is probably even greater than it was when we formed this budget, but this information is helpful. So, Mr. Chair, I yield. Thank you.
I thank you. I guess, we're all suffering from sort of residual PTSD from last year's budget, and we we think we're seeing some of the same warning signs now, although at a lower level.
Correct.
But here's my question. If these trends continue, at what are the signs you're going to be looking for, or at what date should these trends continue where you will be willing to advocate for additional fresh belt tightening steps beyond simply the continuation of doing what we're currently doing?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I think when we see the October close numbers and we dig deeper into the quarterly projections, we will be able to make a better informed decision of some additional tightening measures. But we are working with each department on a monthly basis for efficiency, and the Vacancy Review Board has been doing a real good job in making sure that there is strong advocacy being made for refilling positions and not absorbing some of that attrition.
Well, I'm glad we're doing this. I'm very glad we passed the budget on the condition that we continue to keep an eye on this. Others with questions or comments?
I have one more.
Mr. Warren.
So we're going to get the quarterly analysis next month. I would ask all that detail that we had about positions to per department, filled, funded, all that. I think it's really important that we have that as part of that presentation, please.
All right, thank you. So with that, we'll move on to communications. 25C0117 is a communication from Mr. Pinovi, CPA, Chair of the Audit Committee, submitting the performance audit report on offboarding.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Brandy Bell, and I will be presenting the results of our offboarding audit. The team for this audit was Matthew Irvin, Kathy McCauley, and myself. Processes used to offboard an employee can pose security, compliance, and operational risks. Prior audits found instances of retired or separated employees with access to city systems or retained equipment. This quick response audit assesses whether current offboarding guidance and procedures are sufficient to mitigate risks related to employee access to city systems and return of assigned city property upon separation of employment or transfers between departments. To answer our objectives, we reviewed employee termination and departmental transfer transactions generated from ATL Cloud for the period of January 1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2024. Our testing excluded termination and transfer transactions related to seasonal employees, employees with civil service grades of 18 and below, public safety employees, and council staff. Exhibit 1 of our report shows the departments that play critical roles in ensuring an employee is properly separated from the city or transferred to a different department. City departments initiate an employee's offboarding from the city. Upon receipt of the notice from the employee, departments forward the resignation or retirement notice to Human Resources. In cases of dismissals, department managers file a copy of a document noting reasons for discharging an employee with Human Resources. The Human Resource business partners work with departments to make sure that termination transactions are processed, separation documents are completed, city property is collected from separated employees, and AIM staff are notified to revoke system access. Human Resource Information System team approves and finalizes employee termination transactions in ATL Cloud to ensure employees have been offboarded from the system. AIM's Office of Infrastructure and Technology disables employee access to systems and the city's network upon termination, and the Mayor's Office of Emergency Preparedness is responsible for destroying employee ID badges and deactivating access cards. This slide shows Exhibit 3 from the report. Departments are expected to complete the employee separation and clearance form, which includes a checklist of tasks to offboard an employee. The city's employee exit process states that human resource staff and department managers are to ensure that all city property like ID badges, vehicles, technology equipment, and communication devices are recovered prior to the employee's departure. Terminated employees and their supervisors are to sign the form and note whether city property has been returned, system access has been revoked, and the employee has separated from the city without obligation. Departments submit the form to Human Resources to add to an employee's personnel records. This is Exhibit 4 of the report. When HRBPs receive resignation letters and separation forms from the user department, they upload the documents to the termination transaction in ATL Cloud and submit it for approval through the assigned workflow. HRIS approval finalizes the termination transactions in ATL Cloud, which triggers automatic role removal from a user's account. AIM staff generates a daily report from ATL Cloud of finalized termination transactions that identify terminated employees whose network and system access needs to be disabled. Using this report, AIM staff deactivates the terminated employee's single sign-on to prevent the user from logging into ATL Cloud and manually removes any additional roles that are not automated. AIM provides the daily termination report to other assignment groups who submit offboarding service requests in AIM Now to revoke Active Directory, email accounts, and other system access. Timely removal of system access is critical to properly offboard employees as it reduces the risk of potential data breaches. This slide shows Exhibit 6 and 7 in the report. From January 1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2024, the city had 1,837 separation transactions in ATL Cloud for 1,830 employees. There were more transactions than employees because 7 employees were rehired after leaving and were terminated a second time within the same year. From January 1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2024, the city had 179 transfer actions for 134 employees for the period. Interdepartmental transfers to Watershed accounted for nearly 24% of the transfers identified during that period. This slide shows an overview of our findings. During the audit, we found overall that communication between departments is inconsistent, causing network and system access to remain active beyond termination dates for some employees. Over half of termination transactions occurring during calendar year 2024 took longer than 10 days to complete. AIM does not maintain a listing of citywide system applications that are synced with Active Directory. The city does not require standard documentation to track equipment issuance and return. And the city also lacks a process to ensure ID badges collected from separated employees are destroyed. Responsibilities for the disposal of ID badges and access cards from terminated employees are also not clearly documented. Overall, we found that the offboarding process is manual and decentralized across multiple agencies that have critical and interdependent roles. Communication is also inconsistent, causing network and system access to remain active beyond termination dates for some employees. This slide is Exhibit 10, which shows the number of employees who retain system access beyond their termination dates, measuring the number of calendar days from the employee's effective termination date to the network access termination date, Of our sample of 28 employees terminated in 2024, we found that system access for 7 employees was terminated within 1 day, which is consistent with best practices. Of the 28, we identified 21 who retained access for between 3 and 161 days, with a median number of days of access after termination of 15 days. We tested 4 city systems to assess whether active user accounts were disabled timely upon employee termination or transfer, and found multiple active user accounts of employees who were terminated from the city dating back to 2014. We also identified employees who transferred between city departments who continued to have active user system accounts that were no longer needed. This is Exhibit 12 of our report, which shows that 51% of the termination transactions processed in calendar year 2024 took longer than 10 days to complete. Requests to terminate employees require several layers of approval before being finalized. Once the termination transactions are approved by human resource staff, AIM staff can pull a report from ATL Cloud indicating employees who have been terminated and need their system access revoked. AIM maintains a database that catalogs citywide system applications. As of April 2025, the city had 497 system applications, of which nearly 96% are documented within the database as active. The repository of system applications does not document system applications synced or not synced with Active Directory. AIM disables access to Active Directory, but systems that don't use single sign-on require access to be terminated separately. AIM told us they are working with human resources to automate the offboarding process, which includes identifying systems to which employees were given access when they were onboarded with the city. However, AIM does not manage all systems used across the city, which suggests a process is needed to inform system administrators when an employee leaves the city to ensure all assigned systems, including those that are not under AIM's purview, to be disabled upon termination. The city does not require standard documentation to track equipment issuance and return. User department managers document the collection of property on the employee's separation and clearance form. However, the form does not reconcile collected city property to property that was assigned to the separating employee. User departments can also use an internal checklist to document returned property, which suggests the city does not have a standardized checklist in place to ensure the process is consistent citywide. We reviewed termination transactions across different departments to identify whether assigned city property was collected from separated employees upon termination. We found that the separation documentation for separated employees, which should note the collection of city property, was either incomplete, unsigned, or not present. Responsibilities for disposal of identification badges and access cards from terminated employees are not clearly documented once they are collected by human resource or departments. We found that emergency preparedness is not notified when employees have been terminated, making it difficult to ensure that ID badges and access cards are deactivated. The city lacks a process to ensure identification badges collected from separated employees are destroyed. When ID badges with entry access are collected from off-boarded employees, MOEP, or emergency preparedness, deactivates the employee's access in the access security system. However, the collected badges are not destroyed. They are stored in boxes behind a desk in the badging office or stored in boxes in an unlocked area in City Hall. Best practices suggest that identification access badges collected at employee termination should be properly disposed, including shredded, to ensure that access to the business and its sensitive information is controlled. So in the report, we made 9 recommendations requiring actions from Human Resources, AIM, and the Mayor's Office of Emergency Preparedness. In summary, the recommendations are intended to update offboarding processes, improve notification to promptly revoke employee system access after termination, and standardize processes to help ensure that city-issued equipment and identification and access badges are returned and deactivated or destroyed so that city systems and assets are better secured. The HR Commissioner, CIO, and the Emergency Preparedness Executive Director agreed with each recommendation. And so this brings us to the end of our presentation. We would like to thank the Human Resource Department, AIM, and the Mayor's Office of Emergency Preparedness for their cooperation and support during this audit. Are there any questions?
Yes, thank you. Well, as we always do, first I would ask if there's any representatives of any of the subject agencies, if they have anything they want to add. I would particularly ask that we hear from HR and hear a little bit more about their response to this, especially in terms of the recommendations. Is there anyone from HR here? Oh, hey, Commissioner.
Good afternoon. Yes, I think we indicated in the audit that we agreed with the recommendations and plan to implement the changes.
I would imagine that at least some of this were things that caught your eye, or, you know, since you first got here. What's your schedule for implementation?
Well, clearly, these are important matters we need to handle as soon as possible. I will say we've had some other issues we're dealing with as far as benefits and all those kinds of things, total compensation, but we're trying to get to that as soon as possible.
Questions, comments? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to accept and file.
I'll second that. Motion's been made to accept and file. Let's open the vote.
That vote is open.
All right, the ayes have it. So ordered. Thank you. Mr. Evans, could you sound our first reads, please?
Certainly, there are four. Item number 2, 2050-1603, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee to amend the Atlanta City Code, Part 2, Chapter 114, Article 9, Division 14, Section 114-418, to provide for increased flexibility to make other drafting amendments and for other purposes. Item number 3, 2050-1604, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee to amend Ordinance 2050-1505, adopted by the Atlanta City Council on September 15th, 2025, and approved as per City Charter Sections 2-403 on September 24, 2025, to correct the funding information and for other purposes. Item number 4, 2050-1605, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee waiving Part 2, Chapter 2, Article 10, Division 4 of the City Code to authorize the mayor or his designee to execute the Fifth Amendment to the agreement listed here, Workers' Compensation Third-Party Administration Services with PMA Management Corp., on behalf of the Department of Finance to extend the term of the agreement effective from December 26, 2025 on a month-to-month basis for a period not to exceed 3 months, and to add funding in an amount not to exceed $172,900.00, all contract work to be charged to, et cetera. Item number 5, 2050-1606, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee waiving Part 2, Chapter 2, Article 10, Division 4 of the Atlanta City Code to authorize the mayor or his designee to execute the Fifth Amendment to agreement listed here, Risk Management Information System with Origami Risk LLC on behalf of the Department of Finance to extend the term of the agreement effective December 23, 2025 on a month-to-month basis for a period not to exceed 6 months, and to add funding in an amount not to exceed $148,289.71, all contractor work to be charged to, paid from the department, organizations, et cetera, and for other purposes.
All right, thank you. That takes us to ordinances for second reading, first of which is 2050-1504. Ordinance by Shook is substituted by Finance Exec to amend the city charter as cited by amending Part 1 as listed to update the requirement for budgeted anticipations not to exceed 99% of the normal revenue collected during the prior year, and to amend the code as listed to update the processes for budget amendments and for other purposes. This charter change, this is our second read. I'll move adoption. Second by Juan. Questions, comments? Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed.
Thank you. The ayes have it. 25-0-1551 is an ordinance by Ms. Boone to waive the cited section of the city code to ratify the City of Atlanta's grant application with the United States Department of Homeland Security for the FY24 non-competing continuation funding for the FY19 Securing the Cities program, to authorize the CFO to accept the carryover funds of that grant and to reallocate the FY25 budget in the amount of $687,180.76 to reappropriate grant funds from DHS, to authorize the mayor or the director of the mayor's office of emergency preparedness as its designee to enter into any required agreements necessary for the implementation of this reward. For other purposes, I've been asked to hold this. That's my motion. Second by Bakhtiari. Let's open the vote.
The vote is open. Vote is closed.
25-0-1569 is an ordinance by Finance Exec waiving the cited section of the city code to authorize the mayor on behalf of Enterprise Assets Management to execute the second amendment to the SS indicated Enterprise Integrator Software and Preventative Maintenance System with Honeywell International to add funding in an amount not to exceed $100,000 for additional site locations to implement Phase 2 under the agreement, to authorize the mayor's designee to exercise the second renewal option effective on the date listed through the date listed in an amount not to exceed $99,822. All contracted work to be charged to and paid from, et cetera. And could we get someone to present, please?
Good afternoon. My name is Maurice Jackson. I'm the Director of Technical Service for the Department of Enterprise Asset Management. And the purpose of this legislation is to execute the second amendment to the contract for our EBI Enterprise Building Integrator with Honeywell International in the amount of $100,000 for various site locations identified under Phase 2 of the contract.
Okay, and we're adding sites, correct?
And we're adding funding.
And then describe the function. What does this do? How does it work?
All right. Our EBI system, what it does is think of it as a sort of a smart, making your building smart by adding these modules to certain points in your building. Like you would have, like, say, for instance, your chiller, where you can have a person on a computer that can look at their computer and see what's going on with your chiller and see what the problem is with it before you even get there. Is also a way that you can save time and cost with money and employees by having that person with a computer that can illuminate different facilities and it can be able to see at different facilities what is going on with things in the building. It can be also hooked up to your life safety systems so you can see what's going on with that. So you don't, like for instance, if I had to go and see what was going on with one of the pieces of equipment, instead of having a person physically go there and look at it and figure out, I could do it from home.
Okay. How long have we had this?
We had it since 2000. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'll double check this. But we had this system in place since 2022.
Okay. Can the case be made that this pays for itself?
Yes, it's paying off in terms of how we're using the system, in terms of, like I said, that being able to look at it, different points, different things around at different facilities, being able to identify the problem before it happens, or before anybody gets into the building, we can turn the air off or turn it on. We can, it gives us all that capability.
While we're on the subject, so we have all recently received new thermostats in our offices that we have no control over whatsoever.
And that's a part of that system that we're working on too. It's a part of the EBI. We have funding identified for certain projects, and that's what we're going around doing is making those, like I said, those modules, being able to read it, being able to, I can do it from my office, and if you're saying that your temperature is too hot, I can change that temperature.
Seems like
to
I
make
ought
it
to be
cooler.
able to do it from my office. My unit reminds me a lot of the HAL 5000. Others with questions or comments? Ms. Bakhtiari.
I don't have questions anymore. I'm sorry.
All right, others, I'll move approval. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, there's speakers. Starting with over here.
So that's an important conversation, Councilmember Shook. So you're saying that we'll never be able to access, to control those from our office?
Yeah, we tend to lock those out so that we maintain a certain temperature.
No, it's freezing. Like, yeah, it's whatever is outside is what's inside. Yeah, motion to adverse. No, seriously, like we've got to be able to control the temperatures in our room. But I don't mind meeting about that and letting you sit in my office so you can see what it's feeling like in there.
I'll be glad to.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you could cure meat in some of our offices.
But thank you for the presentation and, well, no, not a presentation. Thank you for this legislation. I support it. I do believe that it's paying for itself.
Yes.
I'm glad we did.
Mr. Amos.
So, right. I was going to ask if there was a system we just got installed in our office. I actually sat in the break room with a couple of your guys as he was on the computer talking to someone on the phone, adjusting them. I started to download the user's manual. It's about 300 pages, but I did study it. But so cut this.
All right. We'll take that under advisement. I will move approval. Second by Ms. Bakhtiari. Let's open the vote.
The vote is open. And that vote is closed.
All right, the ayes have it. 25-0-1570. Ordinance by Finance Exec authorizing the mayor to execute amendment number 3 to the RFP indicated. A citywide electrical services with Brown Electrical Services and citywide electrical services with MWI Electrical Contractors to add funding for public works and watershed for electrical repairs at various facilities on behalf of DEEM in an amount not to exceed $750,000 annually. All contracted work to be charged to and paid from, et cetera.
Yes. And the purpose of this legislation also is to execute the third amendment to that contract and to add Department of Watershed and Public Works to this agreement.
Questions, comments?
My
Ms. Bakhtiari.
one question is back to the AC, when will the whole thing of the lock, you can't touch this AC control override, let's dismantle that so that I can actually control that unit in my own office. But no, this is great. Motion to approve.
I'll second that. Questions, comments? Let's open the vote.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed.
All right, the ayes have it. 25-0-1571. Ordinance by Finance Exec on behalf of City Planning, authorizing the CFO to amend the FY26 Capital Finance Fund budget by transferring an amount not to exceed $900,978.63 from various projects within the Capital Finance Fund to the project listed committed fund balance within the Capital Finance Fund to anticipate and appropriate funds for the third year of contractual agreement for the RFP listed. Supplemental staffing services with Nova Collaborative, a joint venture between Nova Engineering and Environmental LLC, and the Collaborative Inc., and for other purposes. Commissioner.
This transfer is to pay for our supplemental staffing contract with Nova Engineering for 2 or 3 months' time. I can't say exactly because it varies from week to week how much we use them.
Okay, and you're cannibalizing funding for 6 existing projects?
I wouldn't say cannibalizing, but it's leftover funding, so we're moving it to this.
Questions or comments? Mr. Wan.
This is more of a finance question. So Nova was listed in the monthly financials as a cause of the other financing uses variance. Help me understand the financial flow, though. So if we take money from capital finance, it becomes essentially another revenue source, so it somewhat nets out, right? So this is part of the way of we're reducing the gap. Is that fair?
Yes, so we are transferring money from the general fund to the capital finance fund, about $4 million.
Oh, it's the other way around.
That will have it there available for future needs of the department. So,
Okay.
because
It's
this
the other way around
allocation
then.
now is within the capital finance fund, they're moving money to the Nova contract.
Okay.
But in addition, we have to get ready and put in some additional funding there for the rest of the year if needed.
I thought it was coming from the capital finance fund to the general fund to pay for it. It's the other way around. And so have we exhausted the restricted funds for DCP?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you. I'll move approval.
All right, motion's been made and properly seconded by Mr. Hillis. Let's open the vote.
The vote is open. Would all members please vote?
Please vote.
Vote is closed.
All right, that brings us to our first substitute of the afternoon. I will make a motion to bring a substitute forward for 25-0-1585, second by Ms. Bakhtiari. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. And it's closed.
All righty, this is 25-0-1585, an ordinance by Hillis and Wan, as substitute authorizing a donation in amount not to exceed $35,000 from the District 9 carry forward account and the District 6 carry forward account to the Atlanta Memorial Park Conservancy to support the assessment and conceptual planning services study to support the Peachtree Creek restoration project pursuant to the section of the city's charter cited here and for other purposes. I'll move approval on substitute. Second by Mr. Wan. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. And that vote is closed.
All right. Let's take 12, 13, 14 together. 25-0-1587, ordinance by Shook authorizing a donation amount not to exceed $3,000 from the council president carry forward account to the Atlanta Preservation Center pursuant to the section of the charter listed here. 25-0-1589 is an ordinance by Shook authorizing a donation in a total amount not to exceed $70,000 from the council president's carry forward account to various nonprofit organizations pursuant to the same section of the charter. And 25-0-1590 is an ordinance by members Wan and Westmoreland authorizing a donation in an amount not to exceed $5,000 from the District 6 carry forward account to Horizons Atlanta pursuant to the same section of the city charter. Move approval of all three. Second by Wan. Let's open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right, resolutions 25R4089, resolution by Shook authorizing the CFO to refund customers for overpayments to water sewer accounts in the amount of blank, all funds to be charged to and paid from, et cetera. Let's also take 16, which is 25R4090, resolution by Shook authorizing the Commissioner of Watershed Management to adjust water sewer service charges on certain customer accounts in accordance with this section of the code cited here in the amount of blank and for other purposes. Motion is to hold both. Second by Bakhtiari. Let's open the vote.
Vote is open. And vote is closed.
All right, I'm going to make a motion to bring forward a substitute for the next item, second by Ms. Bakhtiari. This is 2504091. We've got a motion and a second. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. And it's closed.
All right, substitutes before us. This is a resolution by Shook, as substituted by FEC, authorizing the mayor to execute the amendment number 2 for the 2026 employee benefits contractual agreements for the RFP indicated with A, Anthem for self-insured medical and drug, B, Kaiser Permanente for fully insured medical and drug, C, United Healthcare for Medicare Advantage Prescription Drug Plan 1, D, United Healthcare for Medicare Advantage Prescription Drugs Plan 2 and 3, E, Kaiser Permanente for Medicare Advantage Prescription Drugs Plan 4, F, Cigna for dental self-insured DPPO plan, G, United Healthcare for dental fully insured DHMO plan, H, United Healthcare for vision plan, I, Anthem for life, AD, and D, insurances, J, Aflac for individual short-term disability, K, Cigna for group accident insurance, critical illness, and hospital indemnity plans, L, Anthem for FSA healthcare and dependent care, and M, Anthem for COBRA and retiree billing on behalf of HR to add the 2026 benefit rates to be paid from the accounts listed and for other purposes. And so I know there's a presentation here. So we're ready if you are.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
To Chair Shook, Vice Chair Wan, Calvin Blackburn, Commissioner for the Department of Human Resources. Just want to make you aware that fast approaching is open enrollment. And in light of that, we want to bring up our Director of Employee Benefits, James Salmon, to discuss the proposed changes in benefit rates. And after hearing him, we would certainly request your favorable consideration of that paper. Director Salmon.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm James Salmon, the Director of Benefits for the City of Atlanta, and I am here to present the information with regards to the 2026 benefit rates for the new plan year. This particular slide is pointing out with regards to how we fall within the mayor's pillars as with a city built for the future. Our objective, of course, is to maintain the competitive benefit programs that we have, make certain that our plans are affordable for both the city as well as for the plan participants. Key items of note for this particular conversation, our open enrollment period is going to take place from November 10th through November 21st. It is a passive enrollment. Essentially what that means is for employees that like what they currently have and don't have any changes they wish to make, what they currently are enrolled in will carry over into the next plan year with 2 exceptions. For those that are participating in either our flexible spending account or our health savings account, those are accounts that individuals have to enroll in every year to continue their participation. Outside of that particular piece, the rest of the conversation will be centered on one particular plan change and focusing more on the cost changes that between the city and what the employees will see going into the next plan year. With regards to the plan changes, there's only one plan change that we need to bring up, specific to our medical plan and our high deductible plan. There's going to be an increase in the cost in the deductible that individuals pay that participate in that plan. Single coverage, that'll be a $50 increase, moving the deductible from $1,650 to $1,700. For those that are at family coverage, it's a $100 deductible increase, moving from $3,300 to $3,400. Outside of that, the way that the plans operate for our medical, dental, and vision benefits and the ancillary benefits that they offer, the way that they work today, they will work exactly the same way going into the 2026 plan year. We're still looking at Anthem and Kaiser to have the same type of network coverage available to our employees. They'll still have the same access to care and the same quality of care moving from one plan year to the next. With regards to cost changes, starting off with our self-insured medical plan with Anthem, there will be an increase in the cost that participants pay to participate in that plan, and that range will depend on the type of coverage that they have, as well as what tier that they're under, whether they're employee only, employee plus spouse or partner, employee plus children, or at the family level rate. And that range can go from, with the high deductible plan, as little as $35 per paycheck or up to $117 per paycheck. For those that are in the point of service plan that we have at Anthem, that increase is going to be between $22 or $75 on a biweekly rate with that. For our non-Medicare retiree plans, as well as our retirees in general, typically they are falling in based on the time that they were hired and the time that they retired. They're either responsible for 26% of the cost, 36% of the cost, or 46% of the cost. They will continue to do that in the 2026 plan year, and then a little bit later in the presentation, I'll be able to break out exactly how that's going to have an impact on them. One thing that I want to point out with regards to our medical plan, I believe there was an ordinance within the last 12 to 18 months in which the ordinance was stating that over a 3-year period, the cost share that employees are responsible for will raise up to 26% over a 3-year period. We are currently in the first year of that range, or that glide path. Going into next year, we'll be looking at a 23% cost share that'll be shared between individuals on the Anthem plan as far as what they are responsible for and what the city is picking up. With Kaiser, since it's a fully insured plan, they are already at the 26% cost share rate. So when we go through the actual exhibit that shows the range in terms of their particular increase, you'll see that there is a noted distinction between the amount that they're paying to stay at that 26 cost share compared for those with Anthem that are going on a little bit of a glide path to get to the higher amount. For the fully insured medical plan, for the type of increase that they'll be looking at, for those that are in the high deductible plan, is an increase that ranges from $14 up to $47. If they're under the HMO plan, it's as little as $12 up to a $42 increase. For the Medicare Advantage plan that we offer, as I mentioned earlier, those individuals will still be responsible for either 26, 36, or 46% of the premium, depending on their date of hire and when they retired from the city. With our self-insured dental plan, there is a slight increase in the cost that active employees will see. That range will go anywhere from 71 cents to $1.81, depending on which tier that they are. With that, retirees will still follow that 26, 36, and 46% cost share. For the fully insured dental plan, employees are already paying the 26% of the premium. There's no additional cost that they'll have to deal with that. For the fully insured vision plan, whether for active or retirees, there's no change in their amount to pay to participate in the plan. What they pay today as a participant will be what they pay going into the new plan year. And the last item of note with regards to a cost change, for those individuals that participate in the high deductible plan that we have either with Anthem or Kaiser, the seed money that the city puts into their health savings account is going to increase. Today, individuals that are at the single coverage receive $600. For those that are at family coverage, they are receiving $900 on an annual basis from the city. Going into the next plan year, we will increase that amount, $750 for single coverage, $1,500 for family coverage. Lastly, with regards to cost changes for those that are participating in our life insurance plan, whether it is as an active employee or for those that are on the retiree side, whether it's a retiree basic life or the grandfather basic life, there's no changes to what they're paying for their costs going into the next plan year. They'll pay the same rates that they're paying today. The next few slides go into the specific costs where we're trying to give you an example of what they're paying today and how much of an increase that they're going to see going into the next plan year. As I mentioned earlier, the objective going into the next plan year is to get everyone to a 23% cost share with regards to if their participation in the Anthem plan. For those that are with Kaiser, they are already at a 26% cost share, so the size of the increase to have them maintain that particular cost share is not as much compared to what individuals are dealing with Anthem. I will point out under the Anthem high deductible plan, there is a typo that's listed on the screen. The information that has been shared separately with the legislation does have the correct amount as far as their particular increase. And after this conversation, I'll make certain that the council members have the updated slideshow that shows that particular amount listed as well. The next slide shows specific for those that are participating in our non-Medicare medical plans for our retirees, those individuals that are not eligible for either Medicare Parts A or Parts B, but they have completed the requirements to be eligible for the retiree medical plan. This is a particular cost that they would pay going into the next plan year. Similar for those that are under the active plan with Anthem, they will continue to have a 23% cost share. If they are 23, 33, or 43% cost share, depending on the time that they were either hired as well as they retired from the city. This is showing the cost for those that are at that 46% or 43% cost share for those particular retirees that are not eligible for Medicare but are a part of the retiree medical plan. The next few slides speaks directly to those individuals that are eligible for Medicare and for the particular plans that we make available for them. We have plans for those that are enrolled in both Parts A and Parts B of Medicare, a plan for those that are in Parts B only, and then we also have the Kaiser Senior Advantage Plan. For the Part A and Part B and the Part B only, United Healthcare is the plan vendor that administers those particular plans. Kaiser takes care of their own standalone Senior Advantage Plan, and this is a representation of the additional cost that they're going to pay. Again, we're looking at, on this particular slide, the 26% cost for those individuals, depending on the date of hire and the date that they're retired. The next slide shows them at 36%, and then the following slide shows them at 46%. For our split option, these are for those individuals where their spouse or partner might not be eligible for Medicare. So we do have a standalone plan that allows for either the partner to be covered by Anthem and their point of service plan, or for the individual themselves, a retiree, if their spouse is eligible for Medicare Part A and Part B, we have a standalone plan available for them. What we're showing on this slide shows the cost for those at the 26% and 36% cost share, and then this slide shows at the 46% cost share. This next slide focuses on the dental plans that we have both for our active employees. With Cigna, we have both the high and the low plan. There's also a dental HMO option available with United Healthcare. As I mentioned earlier, there is a slight increase for the Cigna plans depending on where you fall with the high plan or the low plan. That ranges from 71 cents up to $1.81. For those individuals in the dental HMO plan, there's no increase in their cost. What they're paying today will be what they pay into the next plan year. And then here we're showing the retiree dental costs. Again, that breakout is determined by the time that they retired, or excuse me, the date of hire and the time that they retired. Either they'll be paying 26% of the cost, 36% of the cost, or 46% of the cost as far as their cost share is concerned. Lastly, with regards to our core benefits, this slide is showing both the cost for our active as well as our retiree population that's participating in the vision plan that's offered by United Healthcare. There's no change in the cost for both active employees as well as for retirees. What they pay today will be the same rates they pay into the next plan year. This particular slide, we did want to be conscious of the fact as far as how the changes to the benefit costs are going to have an impact potentially on our employees. What we're showing on this slide here, I wanted to give an example based off of what we would consider an individual's paycheck. In this scenario, we're using John David, an environmental service worker, one designation, what his current salary is today. And we're showing based off of current year rates what his potential cost could be from his gross salary, taking into account taxes, which for us take care of federal, state, as well as a Medicare obligation, and then for the typical benefits, which would be for medical, dental, and vision insurance. Then breaking down what the net pay would be based off if they were enrolled in the PPO plan, the high deductible plan with single coverage, and on the right-hand side, we show the same information for family coverage. On the lower part of this particular slide, we're showing what the increased rate would have an impact on their salary for this particular individual based on whether they had single coverage or whether they had family coverage. And conversations that we've had with employees, we're doing our part to make certain that as part of the preview that we're sharing with individuals, talking about what's changing from one plan year to the next, we wanted to be certain that they have an understanding as far as it's one thing for me to stand in front of a room talking about what the benefit rates are going to be, but it is something significant for individuals that's looking at their gross income being X, deductions and taxes coming out as Y, and what's left over is what they have available for them for the rest of their family. Lastly, with regards to open enrollment itself, I mentioned earlier that open enrollment is taking place from November 10th through the 21st. Employees will be able to utilize the Oracle system to log in, make changes if they wish to make changes. Since this is a passive enrollment, as I stated earlier, what they currently have will roll over into the next plan year. But part of my responsibility, as well as for my benefits team, we're making certain that we're communicating to employees, at the very least, log into the system, make certain that what you have is what you intend to have into the next plan year. That includes making certain that we have the proper spelling of names for dependents, we have the correct Social Security information, and absolutely, this is also our opportunity to remind them to update their beneficiaries if they decide to do so. Of course, the benefits team is going to be available for all employees and retirees throughout the open enrollment period. We share, from an employee standpoint, the contact information for all of our benefit reps. They know which number to call to reach the benefits division. They can definitely go to our website, benefits.atlantagA.gov. That has all of our plan summary information, not only for the 2005 plan year, but once the open enrollment begins, it'll also have that same information for 2026. It is a public-facing website, so any other key decision makers in the household would be able to have access and review that information so that they can make a good decision as far as what they want to have going into the next plan year. And they also will be able to reach us by sending an email to benefits@atlantagA.gov. Lastly, this here is showing during the open enrollment period, we're planning on making what we refer to as an HR showcase and a benefits roadshow. We'll be out meeting with different department employees as well as retirees over a certain period of time to be able to answer questions. Our benefit vendors will also be on site to answer any specific questions that employees and retirees have. Here in the atrium on the 18th and the 19th, the entire HR department will have representation in the atrium. We'll have a number of other vendors on site to make it a little bit of a festive type of occasion to help individuals make a selection or at least get a good understanding of what their responsibility is going from one plan year to the next plan year. I know that I've run through a lot of information in a short period of time. If anyone has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. Just as a quick note, I know that I had an opportunity to speak with a few of you individually, and there were some questions that came up as well. I did have an additional supplemental information sheet. I believe I sent it to each one of you electronically, but I also have a hard copy available. Does anyone have any questions at all that I might be able to answer?
Questions, comments, Ms. Bacteria?
Thank you. A couple, but first, wanted to ask about the payments for our healthcare coverage. So I know for a council like ours comes out of a set budget, but I believe up to 2 of our employees now come out of our office budget. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the latter part of your question.
The funding for the employees, like for example, in our offices, for our staff, will the funding requirements, like for the payment of their benefits, will that still come out of?
I believe that is the case. To my knowledge, there isn't a plan as far as making a change to that.
Okay.
What's happening today will be the same thing going into the next plan year.
Great. And then just changes in eligibility. I'm looking at the Medicare Part D. Does that changes that also applies to us in terms of less coverage on prescriptions?
So with regards to Medicare Part D, we have our plan is deemed credible in terms of what an individual, if they were to go out on their own and sign up for Medicare Part D, it's a compliant plan and it's very similar to what an individual would have to deal with if they were to try to sign up for Medicare Part D on their own. So with regards to the cost for, say, participating in that plan, that's built into the cost with for individuals with the medical plan.
Okay.
For prescription coverage, that depends on either whether they're with Anthem or with Kaiser Kaiser and the flexibility that we have with regards to the formulary that goes along with that. Of course, we follow the standard formulary that Anthem has as a self-insured plan, but we do have opportunities to either add or drop medications from that coverage if we deem that is something necessary or something that's asked for from, I'll just use an example of a number of individuals that come to us to talk about that. For the Kaiser plan, since that is a fully insured option or a fully insured plan, we're going with their book of business and their standard formulary with that. There are some opportunities where we can talk with them and negotiate what could be included with that, but with that, we don't have as much wiggle room, for lack of a better word, as we do with the Anthem plan that we have.
Understood. I know that there's going to be a lot of questions I'm going to have are going to be things that are just not within the control of, it's just not within our control.
Sure.
I mean, and obviously, I'm thinking of things like the, I hate the name of this bill, Big Beautiful Bill, and the new requirements that are coming in terms of Medicaid, and just the, frankly, ableism that's being now utilized to describe how the people that will qualify. And so I'm curious as to how all that,
Sure.
because you were, obviously, we're stating things that we needed to do to be in compliance with federal law.
Of course, of course.
So I was hoping you could speak to that a little bit.
Sure. So, and that's, we've actually had a couple of those, a similar type of question that's come up in some of our conversation with employees. The best way that I can answer that, with our self-funded plan, the city of Atlanta dictates how that plan is going to be. Of course, we need to stay in compliance with as far as to IRS regulations with regards to pre-tax benefits and things of that nature. But as far as what we wish to have covered in our plan, we make that determination. And while whether the current administration or previous administrations might pontificate on things being added or dropped, we determine on our end what we're going to feel is best for our employees and meets their particular needs. We have more wiggle room because, just like any other employer, we need to be able to come up with a very competitive plan to help us recruit, retain, and of course, help reimburse employees that are going to be here with our particular plan. With the fully insured plan that we have, Kaiser is very helpful with us to make certain that if there are going to be any changes, we have an opportunity to have a conversation, to negotiate, and make certain that the plan is representative of what the city of Atlanta wants to have with that. We have a very good relationship with them that we've had over the last few years. They are very receptive to our concerns with regards to reporting, for things being covered, and if there was something was to come out of the current administration that would just be odd as far as what the city of Atlanta would be concerned with, we'd make certain that we have an opportunity for our voice to be heard.
Thank you. And my last question, well, frankly, it is somewhat of a selfish one. And this might not be a question so much for you as it may perhaps is for law, but with the, as someone who is probably now going to have to marry their partner sooner than expected because of federal potential laws that are coming down in Supreme Court cases, for those of us who are in LGBTQ marriages or relationships, if we do have a situation where the Supreme Court does intend to hear a case that could overturn gay marriage and kick it back to the states, what will coverage look like for people that have same-sex partners?
So I can give you an answer based
I know it's
off
an easy one, but
I can give you an answer based on my own experience dealing with health and welfare benefits. There was a time where individuals were not able to, we followed the rules with regards to if you could be married, then you would be eligible to have your partner, your spouse, deemed as a spouse onto the plan. Then employers have went to include spouses and partners, whether they were domestic partners, there was a specific designation for that. And now that individuals have the same rights as everyone else and are able to be fully married, we're just referring to that as spouses, but we do keep a partner designation available as part of our benefits for those that may not go through that actual process but are still in a committed type of relationship. My understanding or my thinking would be if something was to change from a national standpoint, we would either revert to a spouse, not so much, I think revert is too strong of a word. We would continue with the spouse and partner designation, whether or not that individual would still receive the same amount of pre-tax benefit that's determined by the IRS regulations that state specifically what's a spouse, what's a partner. But as far as the plan should operate, I don't see us as the city, making a change where individuals would not be eligible to be covered by our particular plan if a change in marriage status from the Supreme Court or the administration was to fall through with it.
Understood. And Ms. Robbins, I believe.
Yes, good afternoon, Amber A. Robinson, City of Atlanta Department of Law. Prior to the Obergefell decision, the City of Atlanta had enacted legislation at 2-858 of the code to provide for domestic partner benefits. And generally, it states that a city employee may apply for and obtain health and dental insurance benefits for a person registered as his or her domestic partner under Chapter 94. It's set forth that makes a certain description of what a domestic partner is, and then it provides like a process for doing so. And this was regularly implemented by the Department of Human Resources prior to the Supreme Court decision that required marriage equality. So we already have a provision that would revert back into necessity if that were to happen. And so that's already in the code.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That concludes my questions. Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Others? There's been a motion to approve on substitute with a proper second. Anything else? Let's open the vote.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed.
All right, the ayes have it. That takes us to 25R4123, which needs a substitute. I'll move to bring it forward. Second by Bakhtiari. Let's open that vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
All right, substitutes before us. The caption is different. This is a substitute ordinance by FEC authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement for the RFP indicated citywide multifunction devices, supplies, and service with Xerox Corp. On behalf of AIM pursuant to the section of the code cited here for a term of 3 years with 2 one-year renewal options to be exercised at the City of Atlanta's sole discretion in an amount not to exceed $2,794,071. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the sources indicated. And I will move to amend the IPRO report. Second by Bakhtiari.
No, Chair Shook, we're substituting to put the dollar amount in, and we don't have the IPRO yet.
Oh, we don't?
No, so motion should be to hold this item.
Okay, motion to hold by Bakhtiari, which I will second.
That vote is open. And the vote is closed. Items held.
25R4124, resolution by Finance Exec authorizing the CFO to refund $15,929.34 to Response Mine Interactive LLC for the purpose of refunding the overpayment of 2022 occupation tax. All funds to be charged when paid from the sources indicated. Move approval. Second by Juan. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed.
The ayes have it. 25R4125, a resolution by FEC authorizing the City of Atlanta to donate an amount not to exceed $50,000 to the Atlanta Pride Committee, Inc., pursuant to the charter section cited here to authorize the CFO to make the donation payment from the account listed herein and for other purposes. Motion to approve by Juan, second by Bakhtiari. Let's open the vote.
That vote is open. And vote is closed.
All right, thank you. That takes us to, I think, our lone dual item. This is 25C0118, communication from Mr. Panovi, CPA, Chair of the Audit Committee, submitting the performance audit report of Moving Atlanta Forward 2025 Annual Review. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Dwayne Braithwaite, representing the Audit Department. I will be presenting the results of the Moving Atlanta Forward audit. The team for this audit was Chris Armstead, Amani Adams, Lyndon Kuhn, and myself. We undertook this audit as required by Ordinance 22-013-69, adopted by City Council in May of 2022. The ordinance established increased oversight, accountability, and residents' participation with the intent of improving project delivery for the Moving Atlanta Forward infrastructure program. In addition to requiring quarterly reports for 4 city departments on project statuses, City Council also requires the city auditor to conduct an annual review of financials and project delivery for the program and present findings to the Transportation and Finance Exec Committee. We released the previous audits on December 2023 and December 2024. This is the third of those required reports. Our audit objective was our controls in place to ensure that the Moving Atlanta Forward projects adhere to the established budget, scope, and schedule requirements. What is the status of the previous recommendations? To answer our objectives, we reviewed recommendations made in the previous audits against current progress to identify which risks have been mitigated. We also analyzed program spending and reviewed project phases for all projects identified in the strategic delivery plan. Exhibits 1 and 2 on page 3 of the report shows the funding breakdown of the program. Atlanta voters approved the Moving Atlanta Forward infrastructure program in 2022. This $750 million program aims to improve the city's streets, sidewalks, parks, and recreation centers and public safety facilities. It is partly funded by the Transportation Special Purpose Local Options Sales Tax, otherwise known as T-SPLOSH, and by 2 general obligation bonds for horizontal and vertical infrastructures. The bonds also include $36 million in council discretionary funds, allowing council members in each district to use $3 million for neighborhood projects that are not already funded by the program. As of the end of fiscal year 2025, the total amount spent on Moving Atlanta Forward projects reached nearly $97 million, amounting to 15% of the overall planned project budget. This is nearly double the amount the project spent as of the 2024 audit. Exhibit 7 shown above that beginning early in the fiscal year of 2024, spending began to accelerate and increase each quarter through the end of fiscal year 2025. The most notable growth occurred in fiscal year 2025, with quarterly expenditures surpassing $7.5 million each period. Although the project progress and spendings have increased since 2024, 85% of the project budget remains unspent. The planned project budget is $660 million of the overall legislated $750 million. We excluded $90 million of local discretionary funds, overhead, and other costs, as these are not directly under the managing department's control. For the analysis, we reviewed Moving Atlanta Forward's project expenses from the general ledger report in Oracle Cloud from fiscal year 2023 through fiscal year 2025. The strategic delivery plan listed 207 funding allocations that City Council approved, of which 202 were projects. Some of those 202 planned projects have been broken out into smaller projects, which will show different completion percentages as the program has progressed. Because of this, information provided by the departments will show a much larger number of projects. However, our methodology has remained consistent to track the list of projects that were included in the strategic delivery plan, initially approved by City Council. We reviewed the status of the 202 projects as of May 2029 that were listed in the Strategic Delivery Plan. The plan scheduled projects to start across different calendar years, which were organized into 5 batches as shown in Exhibit 9. As of May of 2025, 168, representing 83% of the total 202 projects had begun. Of these 168 more projects, 64 of them were in the planning and scoping phase than any other phase. However, projects do not always progress through phases on the same schedule. For example, a project procured under an indefinite delivery contract could go from the engineering phase directly to the construction, which could impact reported project status. All projects in Batch 1 have started, and 7 projects from Batch 2 had not started. According to the Parks and Recreation staff, 3 of these 7 projects are now in the planning and scoping phase, and the other 4 are on hold. City staff told us that the projects that are on hold for various reasons, for example, the city is coordinating with external partners to secure additional funding. Exhibit 11 in the report shows funds spent to date, excluding council discretionary accounts. As noted on this chart, the total amount spent varies from the total shown earlier in this presentation. In our previous audit, we found that the Parks and Recreation had spent the most funds at $22 million, and the department continues to lead the department's spending and has since doubled its spending to $46 million. Transportation increases spending from $18 million to $30 million, and Enterprise Asset Management more than doubled its spending from $7 million to $17 million. Among the funding sources, the horizontal bond has spent the most, which we also found in our previous audit. However, T-SPAR spending nearly doubled from 2004, rising from $9 million to $17 million. Non-discretionary project spending has moved faster in some districts than others, similar to our previous audit findings. As of August 2025, Districts 6, 8, and 9 had the highest paid and encumbered amounts, while District 1, 2, and 12 had the lowest spending differences stem from factors like project timing and batch planning. Nearly half, 47% of all funds are set aside for citywide and multi-district projects. The program has committed to addressing each project and has included a contingency fund to manage cost overruns. But if early projects exceed their budgets, the city may need to scale back or cancel projects in slower spending districts. The departments reported working with the chief operating officer to define equity, implement a consistent scoping process, and integrate risk management practices to reduce delays since our previous audit. These processes are still ongoing. The strategic delivery plan outlines required project management documentation. We randomly sampled 6 projects to test for required documents in the planning and scoping phase, and another 12 projects for documents required for the construction and closeout phases. For the planning and scoping phase, departments improved from the previous audit by having all roles and responsibility matrices and all but one fully filled out risk registry. However, none of the 6 projects had a completed project management plan, and one department uses a different template altogether. For the construction and closeout phases, departments had most documents related to change orders when applicable, some documentation for pay applications, and about a third of the construction daily reports. We found at least some documentation for all of the pay applications, but only about 1/3 met all of the department's criteria for completeness. For the dashboard, the program has publicly launched the dashboard since the last audit and implemented our recommendations to add project level spending data. We found potential discrepancies between the dashboard and the actual project financials. And our recommendations about explaining at-risk projects on the dashboard were not fully implemented. While we expected to find some differences between the dashboard financials and information in the Oracle due to the data lags, paid funds showed as 6.7 million higher in Oracle than on the dashboard. In our 2024 review of Moving Atlanta Forward program, we made 10 recommendations to the Chief Operating Officer and the Commissioner for the Department of Parks and Recreation to improve project monitoring, cost controls, and transparency. As of August 2025, the Chief Operating Officer and the Parks Commissioner, in partnership with the departments, implemented 4 of these 10 recommendations and reported progress towards the other 6. The audit team dropped one of the in-progress recommendations that was a low priority. The 4 implemented recommendations are to develop decision criteria to prioritize projects in the fund if funding is limited, to design a central oversight position, to add project-level spending to the dashboard, and to create separate purchase orders by project. The other 6 included ensuring compliance with the required project documentation, creating a system to track soft costs, and adjusting the dashboard and related processes for consistency and transparency. Appendix C in the report provides a list of the 10 recommendations and a detailed explanation of the status of each based on the implementation as of August 2025. The recommendations are listed on page 27 of the audit report. We made 3 recommendations to the Chief Operating Officer, who agreed with each of those recommendations. This concludes our presentation on the audit we conducted with for the 3rd annual MAF audit. We appreciate the courtesy and the cooperation of city staff throughout the audit. Thank you for your time, and at this time, we'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you for your work. I think one of the best things, one of the wisest things this council has done is ordain these reports. Who do y'all consider to be the audited agency here? The COO's office?
Yeah, we mostly deal with the COO for the recommendations as the coordinator of the operating departments.
Okay, and so you've presented this to the Transportation Committee.
We have.
Is there anyone from the COO's office here today? And was there anyone from the COO's office in Transportation? The chair has stepped out.
Oh, yeah, one of the DCOs was in Transportation, but Commissioner Cavanis addressed questions.
Okay. I'm not seeing those people or others here today. And those are the people to whom my questions really need to go. Anyone else with questions or comments? Ms. Bacteria.
All right, thank you. As much as I would love to ask you all the questions, I would love to be afforded the same opportunity that was granted to Transportation. So there are questions, but I do not want to put that on you all or on staff meant to carry the weight for someone else. So if I'm happy to submit my questions in email, but while understanding that there was a presentation in Transportation, not all of the people on this committee sit in Transportation. So
Alternatively, we do not have to accept it and file today. All right, questions or comments? There's a motion to hold by Bakhtiari, seconded by Mr. Wan. All right, let's open that vote.
That vote is open. And the vote is closed. Items held.
All right, thank you. Yes, thank you. Okay, we have, I think it's 4 held papers. The first of which is number 37. And there is a substitute. Motion's been made and seconded. Let's open that vote. Okay.
The vote is open. Vote is closed. Substitutes for you.
All right, caption's different. This is 24-01309, a substitute ordinance by Finance Exec authorizing the mayor to waive the competitive source selection provisions contained in the cited section of the city code, as well as any other conflicting code provisions, and to ratify services rendered in connection with the FC indicated commercial property management services agreement with the Shopping Center Group LLC for property management services located at the cited addresses, collectively known as the property and commonly known as Clear Creek Center, beginning on the date listed, and to authorize the mayor or his designee to execute the First Amendment to the management agreement, and to extend the term of the agreement on a month-to-month basis, retroactively from December 1st of 2023, until new commercial property management contract is awarded and the associated agreement is fully executed on behalf of Dean in accordance with the agreement's existing compensation schedule, all contracted work to be paid from property revenues and for other purposes.
Approval on substitute.
Motion to approve on substitute, which I will second. If there's no questions or comments, let's open the vote.
The vote is open. And that vote is closed.
That takes us to 40, 25R, 3827, resolution by Finance Exec authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement for the RFP indicated website management systems with Ernst & Young on behalf of AIM, APD, AFRD, and the Atlanta City Council pursuant to the section of the code cited here for a term of 1 year with 5 one-year renewal options to be exercised at the city's sole discretion in an amount not to exceed $1,617,000. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from, et cetera. The motion is to file. Second by Juan. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. And closed.
All right, that takes us to 25R 3846. I'll move to bring a substitute forward. Second by Bakhtiari. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open. And that vote is closed.
All right, substitutes before us. Substitute resolution by FEC authorizing the mayor's designee to execute the agreement RFP indicated workers' compensation third-party administration with Brentwood Services Administrators, Inc. on behalf of DOF for a term of 2 years with 1 2-year renewal option in amount not to exceed $1,990,000. All contracted work to be charged to and paid from the sources indicated. And it's a substitute because this includes the iPro, is that correct?
The iPro's in your packet.
Okay, the iPro's in the packet, plus the amount is indicated. Well, yeah, it's more of a statement, but I'm happy to have people respond to it. I personally see in this iPro report nothing completely fatal, but I do have to say a lot of the same sort of recurring problems are being identified, and it was my hope. I mean, I know this department is sort of eternally under new management, and yet I would hope that as an institution, we'd see a cleaner iPro reports. To me, it's a lot of the same problems are kind of cropping up over and over again. Is there anyone here from procurement who would care to respond to that?
Hi, Council. Brandy Stanley, Director of Implementation, Department of Procurement. We did walk through some of these ones that kind of repeatedly show up. So in the revisions of the solicitation process, a lot of the forms and documents that have caused some errors on our behalf have been removed in that process. So OCC and Risk have revised some of their documents, and that's been updated in our Oracle templates. And it will ease up the process on the procurement side and some of the submittals that we've assessed on the front end.
Well, and I appreciate you mentioning that you do have other partners that are involved in this process that you do not control the processes of. So thank you for mentioning that. I mean, was there anything you found in my characterization to be unfair?
No, and fortunately, with the new CPO in and the revisions that we've made in that solicitation, whether it be a IFB or RFP, that process will be cleaned up.
Questions or comments? It's going to be up to others to make the motion on this. Motion to approve by Juan, second by, who was it, Winston? All right, let's open the vote to approve on substitute.
The vote is open. And the vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. I believe this is going to be our last paper, and somewhere is a substitute, a proposed substitute. All right, I'll make a motion to bring a proposed substitute forward, second by Bakhtiari. Let's open the vote on that.
The vote is open. Would all members please vote? Would the District 6 council member please vote?
All right, substitutes before us. And this is an ordinance by Boone is substituted by Public Safety Legal Administration Committee. Yeah, does your text messaging not work, Jared? He does that to me all the time, so I should be used to it. As substituted by the Finance and Executive Committee, an ordinance to amend the city code where cited to provide that the CFO shall have the authority to promulgate administrative standards pursuant to which labor organizations would be eligible to have the city deduct dues payable by its member employees through payroll and for other purposes. And let me first ask Ms. Robinson to walk us through the changes in the substitute.
Good afternoon, Amber A. Robinson, City of Atlanta Department of Law. The substitute makes certain changes to the whereas clause portion of the ordinance as well as to the operable portion. Specifically, though the original version of the substitute before you included language that made it clear that any of the employee organizations who are currently have their members have dues deduction would be grandfathered and their status would not change. This substitute includes a whereas clause that really clarifies that, as well as an operable clause that does so. Specifically, it states that whereas it is the desire of the Atlanta City Council that notwithstanding the authority granted to the CFO to promulgate administrative standards pursuant to which labor organizations may become eligible to have the city deduct dues through payroll, none of the current employee organizations which have been authorized for dues deduction shall be impacted, and that the following employee organizations authorized for dues deductions as of October 20th, 2025 shall remain so authorized at the International Brotherhood of Police Officers, the International Association of Firefighters, the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, the Professional Association of City Employees, and the Georgia chapter of the Federation of Public Service Employees. Secondly, the substitute includes language in the whereas clauses that states, as was discussed during the last committee meeting, that nothing in this legislation shall have any effect on the vote of the members of the fire department to choose the International Association of Firefighters as the sole and exclusive bargaining agent for the firefighters within the Atlanta Fire Rescue Department pursuant to the state's Firefighters Mediation Act, at OCGA Section 25-55 and recognizes that the designation of the International Association of Firefighters as the bargaining agent under the Firefighters Mediation Act cannot be altered until recognition thereof is withdrawn by a vote of a majority of firefighters within the Atlanta Fire Rescue Department, and that is also in accordance with state law.
All right. Well, I'm sure other people have questions or comments. Mr. Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Ms. Robinson, I did want to ask, though, my first glance at the legislation, that the striking out of paragraph D, I mean, I understand that basically only for the purpose of this section, and it really only applies to this particular section, but the effect of striking that out, why was that? I mean, and is that, perhaps that's a source of the concern from the unions. I just want to make sure that it actually doesn't do anything. So can you just walk me through that, please?
Sure. But in accordance with the principles of equal protection, the First Amendment, due process under the 14th Amendment, as well as I stated equal protection, there should be a process by which employee organizations can apply for dues deduction, and that is what is set forth in this legislation to do so with a process as promulgated by the CFO. Currently, the code does not is not in accordance with those principles and instead requires legislative action to grant that dues deduction ability for any future employee organization. So in favor of a more fair process that allows for due process, that allows for review and a proper notice to the public, we are instituting the process to be promulgated by the CFO and removing the hardwired designation of just certain chosen organizations for dues deduction. I'd like to note this only affects dues deduction.
That's what I was going to ask.
There's a lot of discussion that I've heard that implies that this has some effect on all manner of other interactions between these employee organizations in the city, and that is not the case. This only concerns dues deduction.
So these entities that are listed here, I mean, that they're really established in other parts of the code in terms of their bargaining power and rights and all that, right? This was only for dues collection.
This is only for dues collection. The bargaining power is granted through state law, and that is granted, as I've described, for the International Association of Firefighters pursuant to state law. Other acknowledgments of labor organizations by the city are done through MOUs between the administration and those labor organizations. And this would not affect that.
I mean, in this purest form, this really all is just granting the dues deduction piece of it. It does not have any spillover effect into the other pieces.
That's exactly
that we talked
right.
about. Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
All right. Questions, comments? Ms. Spectori.
And thank you, Ms. Robinson, for explaining it, because this is not, I am not a lawyer, and I'm still trying to understand, I'm trying to understand everything. And we added, could you state the unions again that have been added to the legislation to be recognized?
Excuse me. So in the legislation, it sets forth that nothing in the legislation shall affect the dues deduction status of the current unions who have dues deduction status. And then it is listed out which unions those are. So again, that is the International Brotherhood of Police Officers, the International Association of Firefighters, the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, the Professional Association of City Employees, and the Georgia chapter of the Federation of Public Service Employees.
Okay. Thank you. 1 second. Sorry for my pause. I'm conferring with my colleagues because I'm still reviewing this and I know that the unions have only just now seen this, so I just want to take a second. Mr. Chair, please.
That's fine. And let me read from this, and I understand everyone's angst. So let me read from this because it's important. There's new language in here that says the Atlanta City Council recognizes that nothing in this ordinance shall interfere with the current designation of the International Association of Firefighters as the sole and exclusive bargaining agent for the firefighters within the Atlanta Fire Rescue Department pursuant to the Firefighter Mediation Act as cited, and recognizes that the designation of the International Association of Firefighters as the bargaining agent under the Firefighters Mediation Act cannot be altered until recognition thereof is withdrawn by a vote of the majority of the firefighters within the Atlanta Fire Rescue Department. You know, I don't speak for other people up here, but I mean, none of us would vote to undo what the firefighters have spent years working for with our support. But I have to say it's impossible for me to read this and see language that's not in here. That's exact opposite of what is said here. And I have to trust my own powers of perception and analysis, which fortunately is buttressed by the Department of Law. And also, I'll say one other thing. I don't think it's I think it would be pretty cheeky of me, as not a member of the progressive members, to tell them what they should or should not do with their money as a fraternal organization. So that bothers me. Now, fortunately, I haven't heard anyone here object to their being able to do that. So maybe that's not a problem, although it kind of sort of seems to be one somehow. Those are my thoughts. Yeah, Mr. Wan. Mm-hmm.
All right, so I did want to ask any of the representatives of the union, have y'all gotten a copy of the current draft? And you're just seeing it for the first time, right? First time. Okay. I'll echo what Shook said. It appears to me as I'm reading the substitute, it does purely what Ms. Robinson said. It's just a dues deduction thing. It does not impact your ability. But just as a safeguard, I want y'all to have time to be able to look at it. I'm going to make a motion to approve on condition so that it won't be on consent on Monday. Sorry, Mr. Chair. But to give y'all time to take a look at it and let the administration or us know before Monday if y'all see anything in there that is not true to what we're hearing and reading ourselves. So I'm going to make that motion so we can at least keep this moving forward. I'm sorry? Yeah, so Ms. Pagnotta, I think, again, we're just going to move it forward. We'll have till Monday. It won't be on consent. So y'all get a chance to take a look at it. And if there is language in there that causes concern, we've got between now and Monday to hammer it out. And on Monday, if we need to send it back to committee, we can. But like I said, when I look at it and I read it, it does match what I'm hearing from the law department in terms of what it does. It also includes extra language in there that I feel protects and affirms what y'all were trying to make sure it didn't do. So that that's not the right way of framing it, but I don't think it does what y'all have expressed you have concern that it would potentially do. But I want to give y'all time to take a look at it. So.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Anything else? Let's vote.
The vote is open. Vote is closed.
All right, the ayes have it. It moves forward under the conditions stated. We will take it up Monday and be happy to have any dialogue between now and then. So let's not wait till the last minute. All right, representatives of the COO's office are here, so if you don't mind, let's have them up so that they can take our questions about the Moving Atlanta Forward audit. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Shirk and members of the committee. Frederick Gardner, Deputy Chief Operating Officer, Mayor's Office.
And are you familiar with the audit?
Yes, we've reviewed the audit, sir, yes.
And your response?
Our response is to address all of the comments, as many as we can, in a timely manner to make sure that the projects and the funding as related to the comments made by the auditors are met. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, is that we comply with the recommendations that they bring forward to make sure that the projects are moving forward, one, and that we are capturing the data and they're representative between Oracle and the dashboards that you see to make sure everything is equalized. Recognizing that there will be some delay because Oracle captures quicker than the dashboards are updated. Okay. But for the most part, to keep them on par.
So in a more general way then, I'm wondering why some of the recommendations that apparently were agreed to haven't not been implemented a year later.
Well, and I can't speak to that, only obviously being here for a short period of time, but I know with my conversations with the ATL DOT as it relates to those projects, our goal is to make sure that we move those projects forward. And that's the one thing that we've been stressing, how do we can get these projects quickly moved from the point of realization to design to planning to construction.
Okay. So some of us who were here, and I believe it was in 2017, when that administration and members of council had to go before the public and publicly apologize for having to, quote, re-baseline the projects. In other words, we had to acknowledge that we had to cut a significant amount of projects that the citizenry voted to tax themselves in order to execute. Yes. And so if you've been through that once, you're always going to be extremely worried about it happening a second time.
Yes, sir.
I won't be here, but I'd hate for any of these people to have to stand up to undergo that. How worried are you about fulfilling this project list in its entirety?
That is a weird question to ask me, sir, but I will say this. We are committed.
I don't ask it, I should resign.
I understood. We are committed to fulfilling the obligations of all those projects. And I will tell you that just in the short period of time I've been here, some of the obstacles that been holding some of those projects back, i.e. Our fire stations and dealing with the TPO, you saw a quick amendment to address that, and you guys as a council approved moving those obstacles that were delaying those projects. We're looking at how do we move quickly through the procurement apparatus, and CPO has been really good with helping us look at I think 16 different versions of how we can make these projects go through the procurement. It's just not RFPs, but there's 16 different versions and which ones best apply. I think IDIQ was one of them that came up, and we're looking to how do we address that even further. But the goal is to get these projects done because, as you said, these were done on the faith of the taxpayers. So our goal is to get them done, sir.
So two of the culprits last time that I'm paranoid are dogging us currently. Number one, the last time we went through this, by the time years later it came to pouring concrete and getting stuff done, well, hell, the original estimates were stale when we adopted the list. That's happened here as well. Inflation that we've seen has been very fierce, as was the case then too. So I don't see, I mean, how are you going to get these projects out?
Well, I think if when each of the departments are given their monthly updates, you'll see that there's some progress being made. It's not that they're all in a stalled situation. I mean, we're going to deliver at least for this calendar year in terms of groundbreaking and completion on construction. There's going to be 3 or 4 fire stations that are going to be delivered this year. And then obviously we're planning on moving forward on a lot of the road projects through ATL DOT and what they're doing. One of the key things that I've said, at least to ATL DOT, which is under my direct responsibility, is you've got to tell your story. I mean, in the last 2 years, there have been projects that have actually moved that hadn't been moving under ATL DOT. And so you've got to take credit. You've got to put that out there. But we got to continue to improve on making sure we get these projects out. And so we're looking at all of the creative ways on how we can make those projects move forward. So, Mr. Shook, can we get 100% of them done? That obviously is the goal. And we're going to try our best to do so.
I mean, I know it's the goal, and I know you're going to try your best to do so. My bigger, more global concern is that there's already, talk of going back to the voters, because this is not going to solve all our problems. I mean, the first one didn't. It was a big, it moved the football down the field. This one moves the football down the field. We still have a long way to go, and with each passing year, more stuff needs to be replaced and fixed. Here's the difference. It's going to be asking a lot of voters to do this a third time. I'll be a dead no under these circumstances. Anyone else? Mr. Warren.
Yeah, and I said this during transportation today. I mean, I think speaking specifically to this audit, the finding of incomplete financial information, the time delay. I mean, there's 2 consequences of that. One is that we're underreporting progress to the public. So again, that undermines faith a little bit. But the bigger concern I have is, to Councilmember Shook's point, is that without all of that information, it's hard to know specifically budget-wise where we're at, because hopefully the project managers are aware of any sort of lag or income, the documents that would have a financial impact. But that's the only way we're going to be able to tell if we have enough financial resources to complete the project. Yes. I am now less concerned about the execution piece of it, because I feel like there is a lot of movement in procurement and strategy and innovative ways to do it. I'm worried about the money. Right. And so that particular finding raised the alarm from, that's a strong word, but just created a little anxiety for me, because as I mentioned, I'm holding all of my discretionary money back because I am scared I'm going to have to plug gaps. And I don't want to go through what the last council had to do in terms of recalibration and figuring out ways to deliver projects without cutting them. So, yeah, I hope y'all will lean into that finding and get it as much into real time and complete that you can, yes, because that data is so critical for the decisions that we make. And then in terms of, at the end of the day, the other option, rather than not reducing scope of projects or cutting projects outright, is that I hope y'all will continue to be creative in funding sources, ways to leverage and layer on other pockets of funds that we have, impact fees, grants, LMIG, all that stuff, because yeah, it's better to just deliver on what we promise versus trying to start new stuff and then realize we painted ourselves into a corner.
And Councilman Warren, we are looking at how do we maximize all of our funding sources to make these things happen, these projects happen. One of our chief benefactors, as you know, has been handed through federal programs, especially on the transportation side. And as it goes now, we don't know where that's going to, where we're going to end up in the near future. But with the funding that we have in hand is literally how do we get through the market forces that are impacting supply, that are impacting the cost of material, right? That inflates your overall cost between what we projected 4 years ago.
Yeah, I mean,
Or 3 years ago. It is a tough, when you're trying to level that off and then, to bring a project that's not going to be valued engineered to the point that it's going to cost you money in maintenance down the road. That's the one thing we don't want to do.
Yeah, and the fact that we've deployed 15% in 2.5 years, that is, that actually exacerbates the concern and the anxiety. And that, yeah, we're then subject even more, exposing ourselves more to market forces and market pressure. So, all right, thank you, sir.
Thank you, and thank you for coming to answer questions. I
Yes, ma'am.
appreciate it. I guess one of my questions is about Jacobs, because I know we were really excited to get that moving, to get contracts out the door. And I'm curious because based on what I'm seeing with rates, it seems like we're still not making how is the progress being made with Jacobs in terms of project completion,
So-
getting things out the door, permitting,
Yeah.
et cetera?
So Jacobs has been very critical in helping us get a lot of the projects up and started and moving. I think in Commissioner Cabinet's reports to you guys, you'll see if you look to where we were a year and a half to 2 years ago versus where we are now in terms of the amount of projects that are getting out the doors has increased. And that's not just Jacobs, but that's also some of the things that are happening internally here, right? With the CPO, with the Department of Purchasing, looking at how do we best structure our procurement, our contracting processes for specific types of projects to get them out the door. So that's one of the things we're going to be looking at even further is if we can bundle projects, get them up out of here, and have the contractors ready to go. That speeds up. But when I sit down with Commissioner Cabinet, especially on the transportation side, when he explains to me where we were when he came on board to where we are now, there's been progress. But there's still a lot more to go. I think as Councilmember Shook said, by the time if you take 5 or 6 years to get a project, the project that was pretty much sitting on a hold as fair or deteriorating is now even further along, right? And so now you're going to go back. So it's a cycle. And how do we get through that as our infrastructure continue to age, as we take charms to improve certain parts of it? It's a challenge. Councilman Bakhtiari.
Understood. Yeah, I know. Obviously, with echoing what my colleague said, and obviously knowing tariff increases and changes in cost, being in a full-blown recession, a number of other things, but also just making, I'm also going to be keeping an eye on work. I think there's a lot of cleanup that can happen between Watershed and ATL DOT as we move forward on moving land forward. I think that also just basic cleanup, if, small things like Watershed properly backfilling utility cut lines and letting it settle so that when we put concrete on top, 2 years later, the road isn't sinking. All of these things to ensure that we actually have set processes in place.
Yes,
But I do appreciate you answering the questions. I do think, I do echo, I'm in lockstep with my colleagues' concerns and their questions, but I do appreciate you.
And we're working in that effort right now between Watershed and ATL DOT. And as the mayor challenges to utilize technology to make changes happen in the most efficient and effective way, we're looking at GIS software, maximizing our GIS software to overlay all of ATL DOT's projects, all of Watershed projects, and then time them out in a fashion that allow for consistency in terms of when one department does work, the other department's not coming back behind it.
Site development, everything working together.
So we're
Understood.
working on that now.
Okay. Mr. Chair, thank you.
Yeah, just one final question. So for those of us, with questions or concerns, who do we go to? Who's in charge of, who's the most knowledgeable single person in charge of sort of having the answers about what's going on with this?
So because MAF crosses a couple of departments, and each of those departments are critical in terms of like DEEM. So if it's a facility issue, fire station, police precinct, 911s, that's going to be a DEEM answer. And technically, both of those departments fall under me, so it could either be me or the commissioners for the respective departments that'll be able to answer any questions you have, Councilmember Shook.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if there's nothing else, I'm told the correct process here is to make a motion to pull this from held. Second. So I'll make that motion, which has been seconded by Mr. Wan. So let's open that vote.
The vote is open. One moment. All right, the vote is closed. The item's in front of you.
To accept and file, second by Juan. Let's open that vote.
And that vote is open.
Oh, look at that. You look so good.
Wow.
Look at Alex Long, guys.
The vote is closed. It's accepted and filed.
All right, and on that note, so someone is asked to speak, but I'm not sure who.
What happens if I hit speed?
Oh, man. Before we adjourn, I just wanted to wish our chair, Shook, a happy birthday tomorrow.
His birthday is Friday, Halloween. It's a jovial time, just as he is excited.
I'm going to do what I do every Halloween. I'm going to hire a lawyer and go as a developer. Does anyone else have anything for our edification and/or enjoyment?
Real quick.
Ms. Bakhtiari.
Just a reminder, SNAP benefits will be completely drying up this Saturday. So if you know someone who is dependent on SNAP and EBT, just a reminder, the USDA is fully capable of, they have contingency dollars in place. This administration has decided not to utilize those dollars. So I would recommend, we recommend going to your community, but please look at nonprofits like Food for Life, food, the number 4, life, that will show you drop points where you can go and pick up food. Please reach out to your seniors, go to your senior towers, and talk to your neighbors, because community is what's going to be able to get us through this. And we do not know how long we are in this for. So community over everything else, and please reach out if you need help and use your voice to help others. Thank you.